Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the third China panel. Now, we originally have 3 papers for this panel, but one of the presenters, we haven't found him yet. So the 2 presenters are with us through Zoom. They are going to present online. Xinwen Zhang will be the first presenter. She's working on the project called China's Evolving Foreign Policy in an Era of Geopolitical Competition. And Natalia Chaplynska is joining us from Hong Kong. The title of her presentation is The Impact of Talent Migration on Hong Kong's Economy and its Role in the Belt and Road Initiative during the crisis of the world capitalist system. Okay, so because we have plenty of time, if we're only having 2 speakers, so I think each person can have 20 to 25 minutes of presentation. And then after your both presentations, then we will go into the Q&A session then, okay? So I will pass it over to you now, Xinwen.
Yeah, can you see my screen sharing?
Yes, that's very clear. Yes, fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to present my research. This research is still in progress, so some ideas are in early stages. So the title of my research is The Role of Economic and Technological Power in US-China Geopolitical Dynamics. Geopolitical competition between US and China. In recent years, the US has increasingly viewed China as a rival. The Biden administration identified China as the only country with both the intent to reshape the international order and increasing the economic, diplomatic, military, and the technological power to advance that objective. The US has begun moving away from the neoliberal model of open trade, seeking friendshoring or to reduce dependency and containing China's high-tech development. 3 lenses on great power competition. Realism poses that states pursue interest and the power maximization, prioritizing relative gains over absolute gains, since their security depends on maintaining power advantages. In contrast, liberalism argues that by establishing international rules and institutions, states can transcend the constraints of power politics, avoid zero-sum rivalry, and achieve shared benefits. Liberalism focused on absolute gains rather than relative gains. Constructivism opposes a purely materialistic view and argues that ideas, identities, and social interaction shape state behavior. However, the US policy has shifted from liberalism to realism. From a liberal perspective, the US once supported globalization. However, liberalism falters in explaining the intensifying rivalry, and the US retreated from multilateralism. Realism explains the power struggle exemplified by US trade restrictions on China, such as tariffs and export controls, and the reshoring policies. From a constructivist perspective, the US shifted in framing China as a partner to a competitor, reflects a competition between political systems. Through the China threat narrative, the US mobilized domestic and international support and construct a unified anti-China coalition, aligning with constructivist insights on discourse and social construction. Regarding the US shift from liberalism to realism, I propose 2 tentative explanations. The first is the relationship between a state's power position and economic profits affects its foreign policy making. A higher power status grants greater security, enabling the country to pursue shared benefits. However, when a hegemon faces a rising competitor, it tends to prioritize power competition over absolute economic gains, focusing on maintaining or enhancing its relative position. The second explanation is neoliberalism may serve as a tool rather than a principle. When liberal policy are in line with developed countries' interests, they promote open trade policies. Otherwise, they retreat from liberalism. Trump discusses how imperial-led countries took measures to prevent weaker countries from entering more dynamic sectors prior to the end of World War II. After World War II, developed countries promoted open trade because engaging developing countries in it could maximize benefits for themselves in the current world systems. However, as China's economic power grows, the U.S. retreat from liberalism can be seen as a strategic adjustment to the changing economic realities. The role of economic and the technological power. The U.S. and China competition highlights the importance of economic and technological power. However, classical realism sees power mainly in terms of military capability, while structural realism broadens the concept to include military, economic, technological, geographic, and demographic factors. However, economic strength is an important component of power, but its significance depends on whether it can enhance security and the military capabilities. This research suggests that in the US-China rivalry, economic benefits and the technological power are not only considered as national interests to compete for, but also they serve as power that determines relative power positions within global geopolitical dynamics. The mechanisms through which economic and technological power translate into broader power remain underexplored. So the mechanism that economic and technological power translate into broad power. First, by controlling global value chains and possessing technological power in terms of trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. These two powers can translate into significant strategic advantages, influencing other countries. Second, the infrastructural power of the dollar. The US maintains infrastructural powers through dollar-denominated transactions and the intellectual property rules, reinforcing its global influence. Third, economic profits of US firms sustain the valuation of dollar-denominated assets, which in turn supports the dominance of the US dollar. This mechanism may explain why economic and technological power have become the focal points of the great power competition. Based on these considerations, the U.S. rivalry toolkit include tariff measures. These tariffs can weaken Chinese firms' competitiveness and reduce Chinese exports. Second, technology blockade. These aim to maintain U.S. technological advantage and preserve strategic advantages. Investment restrictions can prevent China from gaining access to critical U.S. technologies. And the multilateral alliances. The U.S. coordinates with allies to form supply chain security alliances aimed at isolating China, which diminish China's access to crucial markets and technologies. China's evolving foreign policy before the escalation of U.S.-China trade tensions, China has branded its economic and technology efficiencies. Also, China has expanded its presence in world organizations such as IIPPE. Also, China have developed Belt and Road initiatives to expand its influence. As the trade tension intensifies, China's economic strategies also adjusts. It centers on preserving technology independence and securing access to global value chains and alternative markets. These include deepening economic interdependence with developing regions through the BRI projects, creating alternative markets and supply chains, developing parallel ecosystem to cushion against the Western coercion. Domestically, China pushes for technological independence and the resilience of industrial chains, such as Made in China 2025 initiative indicates that key sectors like AI, robotics, 5G, semiconductors, aerospace, and biotech, and with heavy state subsidy to drive growth and innovation. At the same time, China diplomacy become more skillful, focusing on constructive global cooperation, avoiding antagonism and strengthening economic partnerships, particularly with developing countries. China also seeks to increase participation in global governance by promoting initiatives like RCEP to create a high standard free trade area and expanding its influence in international organizations to shape global policies in line with Chinese interests. Conclusion. The US-China competition underscore the central role of economic and technological power in great power competition. This research examines how economic and technological strength translates into broad geopolitical influence, with competition responses focus on key elements, including control of GVCs, resilience of global production ecosystem and alternative markets, technological autonomy, and diplomatic engagement in global governance to advance economic interests. I will stop here and I welcome any feedback or insights to improve this research. Thank you very much.
So maybe we collect all the questions and comments after the second presenter then. Over to you now, Natalia.
One moment.
Yeah, we can see your slides and also yourself as well. Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you too. So dear colleagues, dear professors, it is a big honor to be here and I'm really glad to participate in this presentation. So the topic of my research is Hong Kong view on talent migration and its implications for Belt and Road Initiative and countries during the crisis of global capitalism. Before I will start, I would like to give some brief story maybe why this topic is so interesting nowadays. I would like to give some such example which was made by one Indian person. He was just usual and regular worker on southern port city of Madras, and he did not have any formal college education. He spent his free time for beautiful math formulas, which he just described at his notebook. And especially in 1930, hoping someone would take him seriously, he wrote a letter to Professor Hardy, who was a top mathematician in Cambridge University. And Indian person wrote that nobody can understand me. And with some ideas which he had on his pages, he sent some information about theory, some series of these theories to this professor. And at first, Professor Hardy was unsure of what to make of it, but soon he realized he was looking at real genius. So later they met, and these Indian ideas really were really good. And later, both professors, they created very nice book and realized all these ideas, and their partnership transformed mathematics and laid the foundation for breakthrough in fields like.
Sorry to interrupt, Natalia. Because we are still seeing only your first slide. Is it correct? Have you moved on?
Yeah, this is pre-story, and later I will start with all other
fine.
information, like what I would like to make in my research. So, summarizing this information about this Indian person and professor from this Cambridge University, it was very nice combination, which later provides fundamental and basic knowledge also for computer science and even the understanding of different black holes. That's why nowadays I also would like to discuss this idea and this research about talents more deeply, because it's really deal with capitalization questions and deal with even with world order and how world order also can change. That's why today I would like to speak about such approach like economics of talents, which study these questions and really, we can say, new for talents describing, and also would like to add some world practices as well as Hong Kong case, and for sure make some conclusions. So usually when we speak about talents, this is a very big question, which usually raised by different governments, but questions how to find talents, how to identify talents, what support do brilliant minds need to thrive, or what is the cost to society when talents is wasted, and what to do with all these talents, how to realize them, how to find them. These are the main questions which usually gained through development of different strategies, and especially which really important for finding the best talents and professionals which really need for economy. That's why I also would like to emphasize that talent, this is usually the capacity to solve novel problems efficiently in a person's late teenager years. Talent is shaped by both innate abilities and accumulated learning. But in total, we can say that later, when we speak about different government programs, these talents will not be just oriented into teenagers. It also can be more elder people, which also realize their talents and they can create additional productive value for different economies. That's why we also can say that it's really important to find some promising people who can realize the potential. And especially nowadays, during changes of world order, we can say that these talented people, they also will look for some better chances for them. They also will look for some additional opportunity where they can find better salary, or where they can find better situation where they can show their talent, and also they can care about their families, their kids, and kids also can have better education. That's why usually when we speak about these talents, we also can start from educational prospects, but later for sure it will be some kind of government support, but already later and elder people. Also, we can say that it is very well established that talents tend to manifest in the teenage years, something we can even grow during their school time. That's why these people usually can participate and can be found on different international mathematical Olympiads. Later, they also became the winners of different awards for mathematics. And what is really interesting that in total, when we speak about Nobel Prizes, this graph and this picture, which I show to you, really explain a lot. So you can see that a lot of Nobel Prizes people were born on developed countries, which belong to European Union, or for example to America, but also we can find some countries which belong to Asia, and especially, for example, a lot of them belong to China or to Japan. And what is really interesting that this country, they really support these talents, and they really can give those resources which are usually necessary. So usually we can speak about some mentorship when elder people, some professors, or some school representatives, they care about some kids who in the future can create additional labor resources with very high quality. Also, it will be some kind of financial support, or it also could be some kind of engaging with peers when people, for example, when kids communicate with the same people, with the same kids, they can develop each other. For example, nowadays we have a lot of cases which deal with STEM development. And later, these kids will have a better future because they can have better access to top universities. Also, it could be some institutional support, and as well, they will have access to the global networks. That's why we can say that these kids, these pupils, they can create some new ideas. And for example, also we can say that if these kids were grown by, for example, some inventors, people who create some interesting ideas or some patents. So later, rather often these kids also can be some inventors, and they can have access to those knowledges which really will be necessary. So nowadays, we also can speak about some kind of mobility, talent mobility, how it's crucial nowadays, because people usually, such talent people, they try to find new regions where they can have that access, which will be necessary for the future development. But a lot will depend on high-level openness, also open global environment, break down barriers to mobilities, as well as mutual trust, because if country can provide with these resources, it will be very nice supporting for all these talents. That's why I found very interesting reports, like a few of them, and I summarize and would like to represent them today. And one of them, this is like Global Talent 4 Trends and Prospects 2025. And especially there, it was developed a very nice index, which is called Talent Competitiveness Evaluation Index, which uses the analytical hierarchy process to determine the weighting of each secondary indicator. In total, all indicators were divided into two parts. One of them belonged to primary indicators, and they include like scale, quality, environment, input, and performance, and also second indicators, which will be like supporting or additional indicators. There are like 14 of them, and they include different qualitative, especially qualitative indexes. And as a result, we can see such type of explanation of information, and especially this is pictures which also explain very well what happened in the world. And among the top 10, we can see that 6 of them Western countries and 4 Asian countries. Asian countries also take up 3 of the top 5 ranks. Compared to the index ranking in 2022, we can say that mostly European countries changed their ranks a lot, stand out due to the relatively large changes in their respective rankings. Causes of these changes includes the American implementation of this program, which we can say like American First, that also extend and push some researchers and also like decreased a little bit academic freedom in the country, resulting that many high quality manufacturing and high quality talents also change the places and migrate to Europe. Some Northern Europe and Western European countries, such as Sweden, Germany, and Belgium, increased their investment in research and development and facilitated green industry transformation. And it helps successfully increase their competitiveness in attracting local and global talents. Also, rather interesting example of Denmark, which decreased due to the country defensive expenditures, which grown during last years. And also some additional elimination of carbon taxes happened there. And we can say that a lot of surrounding education reforms happened there. Interesting also example belong to United Kingdom and largely affected by the aftermath of Brexit. Also, it influenced into decreases in research cooperation with the European Union and leading to its fall in the talent competitiveness ranking. As for Central Europe and such countries like Czech Republic, Turkey, which also belong to Belt and Road Initiative, we can say that they have significantly improved their research and educational sectors by steadily increasing investment into research and development sector, and gradually raising public education spending. Plus, Turkey also really deeply involved into educational development, and it established multiple new higher education institutions, also further enhancing capacity for research and talent development. On the other hand, interesting case happened with Russia due to this geopolitical tension which happened nowadays. Russia-Ukrainian war, we can say that a lot of talents, they migrated, they left Russia because they tried to find some new opportunities in other countries. And in terms of talent scale, China and the United States, they have a clear competitive edge. That's why we can see, for example, in figure 1 and figure 2, that United States and as well as China, they are leading countries on different indexes. For example, also when we considering some like secondary elements which also were included into survey, we can say that such elements or categories like number of the working age people with advanced education and number of researchers in research and development. So both of these indicators, they are one of the highest in China and the United States, and they really far from other countries like India, Japan, Republic of Korea, which are ranked also like top 10, but a little bit smaller in the total ranks. Also really interesting that till the 2030s, there are list of like measures, or even we can say like different qualifications, which will be really interesting for people. And here on the next slide, you can see the main work which will require additional labor resources. So here usually we can see very big fragmentation, but almost all of them deal with IT, with computer science. That's why here you can see big data specialists, data analytics, also fintech engineering, also it will be cybersecurity, some kind of UI and UX designer, and so on and so on. So in total, all future labor resources and all future talents will be required from this sphere. But in total, also I can say that biomedical engineering also will be really crucial. But nowadays, especially on those reports which I studied, these specializations were one of the most demanded. So also I created some kind of summarizing when evaluated different countries, what they did, just to explain what are the best practices, which also can be widespread all over the world, and especially on those countries which would like to involve more talents. For example, here you can see like United States, South Korea, Sweden, Japan, China, as well as Germany. For example, United States expanded STEM degree fields for immigrant benefits, and it was especially very big emphasis, which was done by Biden presidency. Later, Trump administration focused on stricter visa waiting, and we know that some problems with universities exist nowadays because not so supporting policy like it was before. Rather interesting experience in South Korea, and for example, study of 30,000 different projects which were organized in South Korea. We can say that big amount of international students were involved, were invited, and planned to be involved by 2027. Also very nice visa support and visa deposit requirements organized there, as well as eased language requirements for work, also introducing top-tier visas for elite high-tech talents with strict criteria, which started on 2024. As for example, Japan, which are also rather interesting and belong to Asia region. So Japan specified skilled worker visa targeting mid to low skilled workers. Also cooperation with Asian countries for talent supply, relaxed job seeking status for international students, and so on. Rather nice examples belong to China, and I think that this is one of the main countries which also can show how these talents projects can be developed. So here, for example, we can see that it was establishing skilled talent immigration system, optimizing visa-free access with 240-hour and 30-day visa-free policies for many countries. And by the way, also would like to add that Hong Kong also has very nice system and visa-free system, we can say, for big amount of different countries. So people from these countries can come to Hong Kong for 14 days, sometimes for 30 days without any visa. As for China, also very nice improved legal environment and recruitment system for foreign talents. So this is like the main interesting key points which I wanted to mention about these countries. And here on the next slide, you can see some more research information about China, and especially China Talents Competitive Index, which scores by indicators, and maximum it was 100 points. And for example, in figure 2, we also saw that talent scale really high in China, but on the second plate, we can say, and we can see this is talent environment. So this talent environment also really crucial. And according to the plan for building an educational power construction issued in 2025, China has placed renewed emphasis on higher education expansion and sustained investment in human capital formation. Nevertheless, in the talent quality indicator, China currently ranks just on the 30th position, indicating short-term pressure. Also, we can mention that in total, these opportunities and these approaches provided a lot of support for talents as well as students. And for example, if we will see and try to find some numbers, we can see that a lot of Chinese students came to other countries like in European Union or America, and almost 95% come back later to China just to develop their ideas there. So it is much better for them because provided more opportunities. As for Hong Kong role in global capitalism, I would like to mention that in total, Hong Kong has long served as a global financial hub, connecting East and West, and its open economy and robust legal system attract international business and skilled professionals. However, recent global economic uncertainties have challenged its traditional advantages. For example, COVID-2019 really decreased total number of labor force and also decreased those resources which were available for Hong Kong. So for example, here we can see that it was reduction in labor force almost into 140,000 people between 2020 and 2022. Also, it was some kind of outflow of talents. So it's influence for sure for labor force, and it was decreasing of capital accumulation, reaching a record low level. And it was especially on the first quarter of the 2020s. But later we can see just due to correct government policy and approach and some kind of talent schemes, which I also will explain a little bit later, we can see that these capital flows increased, and it was one of the highest and in the third quarter of 2022. So we can say that Hong Kong again received that position like it was before. Why it's how this Hong Kong talent migration dynamics have been caused. So why people try to leave Hong Kong, for example, on the 2020s. So first of all, this global economic crisis, this COVID, which was mentioned, also some geopolitical tension, as well as pandemic disruption, changes in global world order, and changes inside of Hong Kong, especially like this umbrella revolution, which was on 2014. One of revolution was on 2014, and second one, this umbrella revolution, was on 2018. So it influenced that a lot of people just left Hong Kong and went to other countries. For example, like on the next slide, you can see that big amount of people and talents moved to United Kingdom. Some of them moved to Canada or to Australia. So here you can see that United Kingdom was 15%, Canada 15%, both of provide special loyal immigration conditions, and 6% went to Australia. So United Kingdom and Canada, they supported people, they provided very nice policy, and especially talents moved there. But when we speak about Belt and Road countries, we can say that the most popular cities were, for example, like Chinese cities like Beijing and Shanghai, also Greater Bay Area like Guangzhou and Shenzhen, Also Western Asia, like United Arab Emirates, Africa, like Kenya, and Latin America, like Chile and Ecuador. So also rather interesting to see that in country perspective, the total number of regional headquarters decreased from United States, Japan, United Kingdom, Germany, France, Italy, and Australia. So I mean, like Hong Kong had a smaller amount of foreigners. But at the same time, a little significantly increasing happened from mainland China, as well as mostly changed to positive from Singapore, Canada, Korea, and Austria. So why people wanted to come to Hong Kong? Because Hong Kong government created 6 schemes for supporting talents. Here you can see the names, and some of these schemes oriented into mainland China people as well as students. And you can see that, for example, Top Talent Pass scheme belonged to such one, also Technology Talent Admission Scheme, and also admission scheme for mainland talents and professionals. So this is the support which was provided for mainland people. Foreigners also received very nice opportunities, but in total, and if summarize everything what happened, we can say that especially mainland people used this opportunity very well. So, for example, if to summarize all numbers which were received from all these schemes, we can say that 2023, the first year of launching program, for example, it was almost 62,000 applications. On 2024, it was 51. On 2025, for this period of time which we have, it was just 22,000 applications. So we can see some kind of decreasing. Why also will explain, because it's rather interesting that people expected more than they received. But in total, we can say that it was rather progressive. So among the 13,000 people whose visa under the Top Talent Scheme, which were expired on July 2025, only 54 percentages choose to renew their stay. So we can say that 46 percentages understood that better to find maybe other opportunities. Usually those people, they worked in commerce and trade, financial services, innovation, and technology. In total, government mentioned that talent scheme was a two-way selection process. First of all, government chooses the best talents, but those talents who came to Hong Kong, they also choose, do they agree with those opportunities, or they need maybe something else. Some of them, for example, here you also can see some reasons. They don't want to work at that sphere anymore. That's why they stopped visa and don't want to prolongate. Or some of them also saw that it was very expensive live in Hong Kong, or for example, it could be stricter rules on allowing students of talent parents access to further education in the city. Because, for example, on July, also some changes happen in educational sphere, especially if parents belong to talent scheme. So kids cannot have the same approaches, cannot have the same like discounts like local students, because it was one of the main aspects why talents try to bring the family here, because they wanted to give Hong Kong education for them. As for situation on 2025, we can say that already 90,000 professionals, as well as more than 100,000 of their dependents, have been offset the exit of those like 177,000 residents who left between middle of 2020 and middle 2022. So in total, we can say that it raised almost 1.2 percentages of Hong Kong GDP. That's why we can say that it also brings some profits and a very nice situation for Hong Kong. As of July 31st, 2025, the Immigration Department had approved almost 111,000 talent applications and 126,000 dependent applications, with nearly 95% of them from mainland. Also, here you can see that Hong Kong General Chamber makes some survey, and here we'd like also to show some results, which also can be really interesting, especially when we speak about capitalism and also when we speak about businesses. So business developed using all like talent ideas. In total, we also can say that it was a very nice increasing of total numbers of companies which were registered by non-Hong Kong residents, and with private projects slowing down, government accelerating public work scheme to boost jobs and fuel economic growth. Plus, it also stressed the importance of retraining programs to help workers transition from declining industries to new ones, because nowadays we have artificial intelligence in France, and a lot of type of works also can be changed by artificial intelligence. Usually, the main questions which raised during realization of this program: did the city really need talent with less than 3 years of experience? Because sometimes when this is like freshly graduate students, maybe they need some practical experience, which maybe wasn't done during their higher education. That's why this is one of the questions which should be raised during solving what to do next with all these talent schemes. The second question: did applicants really qualify to be called talent? Because this measure, what does it mean talent, and which efforts, which like elements should be included that show that this person is talent? Also, that like third question, this is question which deal with decentralization of this talent scheme, because the different regions, they can require different type of talents. That's why decentralization of decision, asking local companies to set out the needs rather than a top-down mass talent scheme that could lead to a mismatch in supply and demand. This is that question which also should be done. Also, the next,
in a few minutes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, almost finished. Thank you very much. And the next question also which should be solved, this is rental property, because when more people come to Hong Kong, the price for rental for sure became much higher, and not all families can cover all these expenses. The same also happened with job market, because more high qualified people, they also will require, first of all, places where they will work, and second, places where, for example, they can realize on that level which they expected. The next one is education question, which I also mentioned, because, for example, it is real problem for them, because education which planned to be provided for families cannot be organized, because Hong Kong requires some additional qualification from mainland family to show which should be shown in Hong Kong. And what is really nice that those schemes, they provided very nice situation, because, for example, we can see that on 2022, the total population in Hong Kong was 7,034,000, but, for example, in 2025, with realization of all these schemes, it is more than 7.5 million. That's why in total we can summarize that it is some kind of balance. So as a conclusion, I divide it into two parts, because, as I mentioned, this is first of all about education, how to provide secondary, primary education, and to find those talents. And second part, this is the government programs, especially for workers, for talent workers. That's why, summarizing all this information, I would like to mention that further research really needed on identifying, understanding the impact of talent on innovation and economic growth. And as for these two parts which really interesting for us, first of all, educational sphere, what should be done? That role of mentors should be identified, so mentors can support the best students. First of all, they need to find them. Second, the effectiveness of summer programs in science, technology, engineering, and math for different students should be organized, and sometimes this also requires some additional support, maybe from local government as well as from maybe state government, because this is that area where all these talents can be found. Also, the next one, this is targeted acceleration in middle school math. So math, or we can say like STEM education, really required nowadays. So especially orientation and creation some additional courses or special groups who works with these courses will be that result or that goal, which will show very nice results of talents development later. And as for government programs, so what is really necessary nowadays? This is building a data-driven global skills or even platforms which can recognize certificates all over the world, or for example, even these micro-credentials which can be provided during lifelong study. This is also very important nowadays. Or for example, academic qualification and talent mobility governance system. Also, the next one, this is diversification and digitalization of talent mobility governance platform. Also multi-level platforms for talent exchange and dialogues. This is like special platforms where a lot of talents can find some opportunities for them, can discuss what happened in different areas and different regions. And the next one, this is digital certification system, which should be developed to provide institutional guarantees that if you study at this university, so you will have the certificate which will show that this is high qualified major, this is very nice established university with nice credentials. Also rather interesting that nowadays we also have some platforms, and one of them like LinkedIn, but this is not official for sure information. This is just information which can be provided by each person, but using even this platform, a lot of talents also can provide real information, real documents, plus necessary assessment by other people. And it can show those talents which, for example, cannot be found during some programs. So why not if we will create something like such platform? And other technology which also can be developed for talent schemes and for talent involvement, this is blockchain technologies, where transparent information will be provided and people will trust to that information, because this is not just that point that I'm a talent and I provide this information, but also this is how other people support and how other people recognize this approach. Okay, so maybe let's stay on these points. Thank you very much for this time, for your time. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think we can open the floor. Please come over and then ask question or give any feedback to. No, the other person just I communicated with him. He said he actually fallen really ill. He was planning to come. He actually was stopped at the airport because he was having too high a fever, so he couldn't board the flight. Yeah, so it was really. He was supposed to travel from Shanghai, but yeah, couldn't come, even though he had got everything prepared for. So I think that he either hospitalized or I don't know, was sent home. I don't know. Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. So Joe, I think you have some questions. You want to come over? Yes. Come over here. They can hear you. And some feedback. If you want to.
Right, so should I just speak? Or? Okay. So I guess this question goes actually back to the first presentation, if we still remember what it is. It's to do with the basically, the whole idea of the US-China relations and geopolitical context, and how that is related to the economic and the technological power of the respective forces. So my question, I guess, to Zhang Xinwen is that to what extent does she think that there might be some sort of a foreign policy, a trajectory coming out of this, right? Because what she presented is an international relations theory or international political economy. And how does that then relate to, say, foreign policy, right? Because foreign policy is actually a subfield of international relations, related, but then autonomous in the sense that it's becoming it has already become a subfield. So I guess this is a matter of a disciplinary, I guess, question or query. Right? So that's one question. Because obviously, actually, Zhang Xinwen and I have been working on this, for a month or two, on how does that link to foreign policy, China's foreign policy versus US foreign policy. with or without US, right? That can go either way because, you know, we can look at China on its own, right? How does it challenge international order with its foreign policy trajectory, or how it relates to, is related to US, and how that then the combination of China and US and how they relate to one another would define international order. I guess that's the question. Yeah.
Should I respond now or?
Yeah, hello. I actually have a question to the first presenter as well. So, my name is Defne Gönenç, by the way. I'm from this university, but I'm based in the Cyprus campus. I'm not working on China directly, but, and I actually unfortunately missed there was a session on if China is an imperialist power, you know. I really wanted to attend, but I was in another one. So I wanted to ask for your perspectives about, you know, what can China offer the world, you know, as opposed to Western powers? Like, I mean, the South, the global South, has already been suffering quite immensely from the Western imperialism, you know, plundering of the global, you know, North, destruction of the environment, ecology, and human rights. So now there is already a group of people who are arguing that China is doing yet another version of it. But I would like to ask, what can China ask, in your perspective, differently compared to what the Western powers have been impacting the global South so far, you know, both, you know, in terms of its culture, in terms of its, you know, economic organization, and it's also social practices, you know. So what are your perspectives about it? Thank you very much.
Yes, Xinwen, you can respond to these two. Yes, Xinwen, I think you can respond to these two first, if you can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to Jolene. I look forward to your contribution on this topic. Yes, we have discussed these topics for months, and what I have presented is my thoughts on this topic. I think I have introduced some economic concepts into the international politics discipline. However, I feel what I lack is what you have mentioned, how to theorize the theories into foreign policies. And I think that foreign policies have been affected by many factors, including domestic politics, leaders. Theories may not completely explain the evolving foreign policies. So I look forward to your contribution on this topic. Thank you very much. Regarding the second question, China, is China an imperialist country, and how does China's culture and the system distinguish China from Western countries? My opinion is Chinese firms are the main actors engaging in globalization and participating in global value chains. So my personal opinion is Chinese has implemented market economy, so it's a capitalist economy. So Chinese firms are driven by capitalist logics. Therefore, when participating in global value chains, they are driven by the same logic as other multinationals, as in developed countries. However, because China is still a developing country, and Chinese firms are not are not as strong as Western multinationals. So and their styles, their business styles may be different with those Western countries. But this require further research far exceed my counter research could reach. Well, comparing with the U.S. U.S. Hegemony, China has China lacks in many criteria as an imperialist country or a hegemon. For example, China does not have the dollar dominancy, RMB, although China has promoted RMB going global, but RMB still have a limited influence compared with main currencies. So this is one weakness. Furthermore, in technology field, China has possessed much less intellectual properties compared to Western countries. So the Western countries still extracted the disproportionately high super profit because they control global value chains. China only attempt to create its own alternative value chains, and whether it can succeed or not are still an open question in the current geopolitical dynamics. Yeah, I agree that these questions require further research, and thank you very much for your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Xinwen. I think I may just follow up on the two questions or comments, because I think that is actually can help to get deeper into Xinwen's project, because she also mentioned that is a proposal in a very early stage. I'm an outsider of foreign policies, but I'm just from listening to all this, it seems like that is not really a very credible theory at present to explain the foreign policies of China yet, because in, for example, constructivism or realism or all these things, they are major power politics that is between capitalist powers that's trying to dominate, because that is also part of the logic of capitalism, that you need to monopolize using economic, using your political or military powers to dominate, and so that to preserve your economic dominance. So I think my point of view is quite different to Xinwen, because I don't see China as a capitalist power. So the logic that's driving its foreign policy is not for the expansion of the capitalist profit or those kind of things. So I think you can see the anomalies in the tradition of Chinese foreign policy from as well as it started. So the principles that established in how they deal with the developing countries, and also the Bandung Conference, and the theories that's trying to back up those kind of push for equitable development, even though it has met with a lot of setbacks, and you can't really say it has been successful given the polarization that we're seeing now. But I think in the foreign policies that China has been trying to promote, I think it has the logic behind it is still some resemblance of the socialist kind of principles, even though you may say that it's very just superficial or rhetorical. But I think maybe if we look further into this, especially now China has the economic substance to back up these kind of new proposals, and then maybe more obvious things that you can look out for to also maybe try to build a something similar to a theory to explain what China is trying to do. I think Zainab's presentation in the previous session actually gave a lot of the content of what China has been trying to do, trying to be coping with the existing model, but also doing something different that can build something new. It is, like she said, undecided, and it's not just entirely dependent on China. It's also relying on the global South countries as well, if they can pull together. One of the examples I can see is that, for example, in the Gaza, this crisis in Gaza, genocide that's going on, China in 2024 actually has been able to get the 14 factions from Palestine to Beijing, have a meeting among themselves to overcome differences, at least during the meeting, and then came up with a Beijing declaration that they can all sign and agree upon. One of the things is to recognize the resistance right of the Palestinian forces. So Hamas was recognized as a legitimate political organization in Palestine. So that was in 2024, and it happened in Beijing. And I don't think we have seen really any further developments after that, unfortunately. That is with a year going on. So this also reflected the very fact, the reality that China on its own can't really deliver the big changes that we may want to see in the economic order or international order. So that is some attempt, but also we can see how it's not successful. So maybe going off the tangent. Regarding to Natalia's presentation, I think because you have in your subject, you wanted to use maybe Hong Kong as a case, the talent flow, to indicate how China or Hong Kong is, I don't know, the talent flows as a signature or as a sign of the capital system crisis. Is it something that you wanted to show that, for example, there is a talent outflow and also the talents coming from the mainland China into Hong Kong? But I would like to see more on how this is to do with the capital system, the crisis that you see in the capital system that is reflected in these case studies, or it is not the arguments that you are making. If I have confused it myself, please correct me. But yeah, so this is my question.
Okay, thank you for your question. In total, when we speak about talents, we can say that they, like their allocation, really form that like approach that if, for example, a country has more talents, which based on that country, it means that in the future these talents also can create some like economic growth. And if a country spends a lot of efforts and resources, different type of resources for growing such talents, it means that in the future it will be much better perspective for also economical development. So it will influence into different approaches which capitalism usually have. Also, it will help to create new industries, new business types, which for sure in the future can have better results because it will be some kind of synergy effects which can widespread to different areas. That's why when we speak about these talents hub, a lot of countries, they try to create such conditions when people would like to be there. They would like to spend the time. They would like to show what they can do. And for example, also we can say that rather often some researchers, for example, like Albert Einstein, and for example, Jonas Salk, they also started from small steps. But in the future, just because of their development, just because of their involvement into such areas, they became rather popular, famous, and they created something new, what can develop in total that sphere or create something unique. And in total, government also can use these skills, these new, we can say, resources and new knowledges, not just on that time, but even on long-term period of time. And at the end, it influences into even like growth, like into GDP, into economical factors, which usually can be shown under innovative development of that country, and in total can influence into capitalization in total, and for sure can create very nice business development. Yeah, this is the main about these talent hubs.
Yeah. The other thing, because I'm also from Hong Kong, so what I realized regarding this talent pool that they try to attract from the mainland, the other thing is the talent retention rates, as you have shown, like almost half of those that who got this talent visa to Hong Kong, they actually wanted to leave Hong Kong. So for different reasons. So it may also show there is a shortcomings in the Hong Kong economy. Yes, these external people are bringing benefits to the economy, like they have to live there, so they have expenses that is bringing to Hong Kong. But at the same time, the talents that they bring along with them is not being utilized because Hong Kong is relatively just monopolizing on certain sectors. So it's a very narrow economic kind of activities that's only accepting certain kind of people. So people with different backgrounds or different expertise can't really find a very useful jobs in Hong Kong, for example. So do you see that is also one of the reasons that is leading to the low retention rate in the Hong Kong talent program? And if that's the case, is Hong Kong government doing anything to try to address this? Or they don't mind, actually, people come and go, they just let them go?
I think the main question here that these schemes were created especially to involve more people from all over the world and especially from mainland China. That's why it was the main purpose for the government to find such people. But I think that maybe not all factors were included from the very beginning, because, you know, when such schemes created, they have some limitation, which maybe wouldn't show at the very beginning. That's why such like goals should be solved in the future also, because these problems exist. And you see that these schemes, they started like on 2023. So this is like 2 years when government can see the result and can see that it also not just inflow, but outflow, because some questions were not solved, especially like that educational question for family dependence and so on. That's why I think that government will have this questions on their rundown in the nearest future, because in other case they just will lose and just spend the time and the money for not correct approach, not correct policy and talent scheme, and they just lose everything what was done. Yeah, nowadays we can see balance, so this is some kind of inflows when people come, but that amount which came from the very beginning much bigger than we have nowadays. That's why government should make these changes.
Okay, so any other comments or questions for our speakers? Okay, great, thank you.
Exactly. Now that we still have time, you know. Actually, your intervention gave me, you know, a desire to ask this question. We were talking about how China has now the economic base, you know, for promoting further transformation within China. But how do you see that there can be a possibility in the future, potentially with collaborating with other, you know, economic hubs in the world to a larger transformation into like socialism, actually global socialism? How likely that it can transform, you know, into a change in the global economic system? Or do you rather see China as a continuation of the, you know, as a continuation, or perhaps with certain changes, but limited changes, as a power in global capitalism? Like either ways, which one to go? Yeah.
What I think is one question.
can do as well.
I just don't want to take over and present it. Yeah.
But then you can communicate now.
Okay.
They will see.
They don't mind. Okay. So in response to your question, I think I would side with the fact that China is making a huge effort trying to collaborate with the South, global South, and try to push socialism onto the international front, right? And just now, I've been reading a lot of articles actually published in WeChat. You probably know about WeChat, right? And a number of universities in China now are, okay, let me be a bit conservative, are entertaining the idea that, you know, there could be a kind of a proletariat, international socialist effort there. Right? And you can see that, you know, a lot of the, like Renmin University, we all know, People's University in China, right? They're like one of the hubs, you know, that, you know, spends, you know, lots of resources in trying to advance the research, theoretical, basic research of, sorry, Renmin University, People's University, yeah. In China, everyone knows, it's like the LSE in China. Right? They're very good with political science. So they've been making a huge effort trying to reread, reinterpret Lenin's work, you know, on proletarian internationalism. And I have just read one actually on WeChat, and they're trying to push the whole idea that socialism is not just in one country, right? It has to go on. There has to be some way of trying to collaborate and trying to formulate or form, or actually just to create the conditions for a proletarian solidarity. And I would say that the Belt and Road Initiative could be seen in such a way. Now that I will agree with Zhang, the fact that even, you know, theoretically speaking, if you go back to the principle of proletarian internationalization, it cannot require China to do this on its own. Right? The whole idea is that everyone needs to work together. So on the one hand, we can criticize China for whether it's you know, interaction with global capitalist systems or global capitalist forces. On the other hand, the criticism can also result to a kind of idealism, the fact that, you know, we just sort of keep it China. Well, that is, you know, so again, you know, we kind of have to be a bit dialectical here, right? China needs to be responsible for what it's saying, but also for the world, but also everybody else needs to, you know, turn the Belt relationship to something that will work for everybody, for the world. So I always been sort of arguing the fact that the Belt and Road Initiative, yes, it was launched in 2013 by Xi Jinping, you know, in China, but does it really have to be a China-centric model, right? Does it have to be a China-centric? So I think for me, China is taking a leadership, is making an effort there. But China can also be playing different roles, right? It doesn't have to be like the sole leader of Belt and Road Initiative. It can be an interlocutor. So that's my kind of editorializing, like.
Yes, our online speakers, if any of you want to join in the discussion, any comments you want to make? Not compulsory, but if you want to, yes, you can talk.
Well, Dr. Lin have answered the question very well, and yeah, I also think that China's participation in global value chain and China's attempt to create alternative markets or alternative value chains have benefited other developing countries. For example, as we respond to U.S. tariff on Chinese exports, China also imposed a tariff on U.S. agricultural products. So China shipped to Latin America for agricultural products, and these benefits the local economy. Furthermore, Chinese projects like the Going Global Infrastructure construction project have built roads, airports, and other infrastructure projects in local countries, and this can be seen as a Chinese specialty compared with Western countries that specialize in high-tech technologies. So I think different countries have their different styles, and we need to do empirical comparison to see how China benefit global South in collaboration in alternative markets, in alternative global value chains. And I think that a multilateralism will benefit global South in compared with a single hegemon, a US-led economy. Thank you.
I just would like to add, I totally agree also with my colleague who just spoke from the campus that, for example, Belt and Road Initiative, this is a great opportunity to show how all these questions also arise and how they can be solved, because Belt and Road Initiative nowadays, there is 154 countries all over the world. This is a very nice combination when West and East try to collaborate, and also like a global South, which also was mentioned by professor and my colleague Xinwen, and at the same time, even Latin America and Africa also can be involved, and it also can help with solving question on those countries where different projects from Belt and Road Initiative will be realized, because this is also some kind of accepting of local opportunities, because first of all, Belt and Road Initiative, this is how to develop Chinese ideas and especially Chinese infrastructure projects in different countries. But when this project relies on the territory in that country, so this is some kind of collaboration with some kind of local people, we also can say, because first of all, for sure, Chinese people will be there, their capital will be there, their ideas, their those resources which should be involved into realization of this project. But at the same time, this is also supporting some kind of of local government as well as local people, which also help with solving such type of questions, which were mentioned by our colleagues from in campus.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more comment, do you guys want to continue? If not, then maybe we will finish this now. I think we have had a very good presentations and also some very intimate discussion, which is privilege to our small group here. Yes, yes. So thank you again, Natalia and Xinwen, for your presentations and joining us from wherever you are. So really appreciate it. Okay, then we will finish this session and then we will go off to lunch. Then it's lunchtime. So thank you very much. Yeah, next time join us in person.
Yes, definitely we will. You know that it will be very big pleasure to see, because it will be much easier to understand and communicate with each other and build this network. This is the main question which we should do all the time during conference. Thank you very much for invitation, and thank you for your questions and also your tips.
Thank you very much.
Yes, in Portugal next year. Yeah, need to go to Portugal next year. Let's all go.
Let's go.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Have a nice day. Bye.